Hey, I'm James, Senior Product Designer from UA, and we're going to talk about Spring 65. The interesting thing with reverb is classic amp-based tube-driven spring reverbs from the 60s. It's what we think of when we hear great guitar sounds from that period. And what we had to do was actually model almost the entire tube amp to get the spring to sound correct. So when you're hearing these sounds, you're actually hearing the tube tank driven by the tube in front of it and then the recovery tube back. So it actually adds a bunch of really cool sort of harmonic things, what we call nonlinear artifacts. So you're driving this tube tank with a hot tube. It's getting nice and spread out and hitting the tank hard. And you get that real sort of dynamic thing. So it's one of the things where, if you notice, when I play harder, you not only hear the tank rattle, but it's actually being driven by a tube harder as well. So we can sort of exaggerate that in a little bit. So one thing to show you is it's not just a single spring tank. We actually have 3 different model tanks and circuits around this. I started in the A one, which is sort of classic and sort of a rattly mechanical sort of attack at the top, but then has a nice smooth decay. So it has a big hit and then a sort of quick finish with smooth reverb. So you'll hear this when I play harder. Now, let's take a listen to the B tank. So this is a whole different model. So this one has a little bit more of a resonating frequency in the spring. So you hear certain notes pop out. It's longer. It's got a smoother attack. So I like to call this one sort of my butter setting. It's super smooth on chords. You can hear how that one trails out. There's actually a little bit more body to the tank. And that's just in the tank, funny enough. Because every tank we tried all sounded different. So like I say, it's hard to find one tank that is the classic spring reverb. So again, that's why you get 3. And why we found one other one in this pile that we had, which I won't bore you with how many we went through, because it was a lot. There was one oddball that had the longest decay, it had the most resonating notes we could find, similar to like if you hold a sustain pedal down on a piano and you heard all these sort of notes resonating in the key bed there. So I'm going to put this in C mode. You're going to hear a big bottom end. You're going to hear notes jumping all over the place. I don't know if you can hear that, it actually grabbed on to that D note and started to sort of resonate with the tank. So you'll start to find all these cool little resonating notes in there. Another fun thing is, well, how do we make this a stereo effect with modulation? Because springs don't have modulation. What we did is give you pre-delay, and with the pre-delay, typically in a studio you would use an actual tape machine to do pre-delay. So we figured, well, what could be cooler than the pre-delay, sort of basing this wow and flutter effect and giving you that as the sort of spreader. So on the control here, I had this off the whole time. So as I turn this up, you're going to notice sort of the wow, which is a sort of a consistent sort of lope to things. And that's going to get a little higher. You're going to hear almost a chorusing sound based on the tape machine of really the EP3s where we got it from, just that little mechanism. And at a certain point, you're going to hear the flutter take over. So you're going to start to hear random pitch pulling. And you get this really ghostly sound, especially on the C tank. So I'm going to start to play and turn that up for you. So you can create this really big stereo ambient spaces kind of just by pushing the mod control. And the mod, what it does is, again, you're hearing flutter and wow. You're also hearing two independent spring tanks. There's actually a tank left and a tank right. So if you have something like a ping pong delay going into Spring 65, you'll get discrete pings left and right and discrete tanks. So as you feed a stereo contact, this just gets even wider sounding. Because right now we're only hearing one pedal. It's just the Spring 65 doing all of this stereo ambient spreading. So what else could you possibly do to this? Well, we also figured if we were going to go as far to give you the tube-driven front end, back end, which is really the thing that gives the tank its life. It adds the right kind of high end sort of hit and sort of grit and to harmonics of the tank. You also find that depending on whether your amp's bright or dark, you may want to adjust the spring reverb sort of EQ. But as you notice, I started at noon, which is, let me turn this off here. We'll go to the A tank. I started at noon because that's where the original tank in that circuit sounded like it was placed in the amp. So if you leave it just like this, it sounds like there's spring reverb in your amp. You probably, maybe you can't tell or can't tell the difference. I couldn't at a certain point from the real amp we were testing against. So I usually leave it here, but again, maybe you're playing in front of a bright amp and you want to pull the treble back. Or if you're in front of a really dark amp and it's not dripping enough, crank up the treble. And you can't really hurt it. You can max those two controls out and it still sounds big and lush. So let me do that for you. So we're going to start here. I'll add some bass and add a bunch of treble. That tank just got big and burly sounding. So you can't really mess this up. You can just have fun, throw the knobs wherever you want. We sort of tuned all the fine corners of these knobs to give you something musical. So in an extreme case, I can max out the wow and flutter, go to the crazy long tank. And the one last secret hiding here is the decay knob. Because the decay knob, you've noticed I've sort of left it at noon the whole time. At noon, that is the original tank as we found it. It's that decay time of the tank. Now, it's split in thirds. So the first third of that decay knob is a physically transformed version of that tank. So it has the same hit of the tank, but a shorter decay. And the middle area of the third is the stock setting. And the last third is taking the springs and stretching them, trying to get them into a longer decay. So there was a bunch of crazy stuff that our Ross did for us that was just modifying tanks and trying to get the decay longer, but giving you the same exact feel of that first mechanical hit. So we physically moved the springs around and did some retesting to get the tank physically shorter in a decay time, and then remodeled it all over again. So you'll notice, so that's got that metallic hit at the top, but with a shorter decay of the actual reverb. And then this, go all the way to the top, brings in that last third of the knob, which is a longer decay with that same metallic hit. And you can actually hear the honk as it goes out. And if anyone's ever accidentally dropped one of these amps or kicked your amp with a spring tank, you hear this rattle. That is that rattle sitting there waiting. So if you drop this pedal, you'll probably hear the same thing, which was a bug early on. The actual physical hit the tank rattle. I'm going to go over here so you can see it's going to just load the longest tank here. We're going to be in the C side here. And I'm going to play a chord and let you hear the madness that is a super long, weird tank we found that's ambient with wow and flutter with lots of treble and bass. So there is one last little hidden trick to this pedal, and it's hidden in the mix knob. If you put the mix knob at 100% wet, we actually kill the draw for you. And you've heard, well, why would you want to do that? There's two interesting cases for that. One is ambient sounds. When you're building these beautiful spreads, sometimes you don't want any dry in that signal path. And you can hear if I play a chord here, all you get is this beautiful pad of reverb. And the second thing is a lot of amplifiers have an effects loop where you can actually just parallel mix them. So if you read your amp documentation, some of them may tell you to put your pedal in sort of wet solo mode. So you don't have to go into any menus to do this. Just put the mix at 100%. You've got the dry out of there. And then you can use whatever blend knob that your amp may have to turn on your reverb. We try to always give you the classic sounds, but there are a few creative options where you can kind of make the Spring tank your own with some fun with the modulation and EQ stuff. That's it. Hope you have fun with it.